Sometimes we need to be able to watch for and respond to events in our application, and Angular provides a way for us to do this easily with scope.watch. In this lecture, we'll learn about watchers and find out how to use one to close the sidebar. Alright, so we've got our classifieds route, and then if we click new classified, we get to a different route. We get classified/new. And then we get our sidebar like we'd expect with our form, and we can fill that out. And right now, it's not going to do anything if we click save, and also it's not going to do anything if we click cancel. You see there, we don't get the sidebar closing like it used to when we would click cancel. And another issue that we've got right now is if we were to click to the side here, we see that the sidebar goes away, but we're still at this classifieds new route. What we'd ideally like to have happen instead is whenever we are to click new classified and get to the sidebar, we would want the sidebar to be closed when we click cancel, or if we were to click to the side. And when that happens, we would like to get back to this classifieds route so that we're back where we started. And to do this, we can make use of one of Angular's features called a watcher. And a watcher in Angular is a special feature that comes with the $scope object. And with it, we can watch for changes to some value and then define some custom behavior for how we'd like to respond whenever that value changes. Alright, so let's see how this actually works out. Let's head back over here to our new classifieds controller. And the first thing that we're going to want to do is inject $scope. And so how come we're using scope again if we've just come to this place where we're now binding all of our properties and methods directly to the this keyword via this capture variable? Well, there are certain properties of the scope object that will only be available to us via the actual scope object. And so we've said already that we're now going to be tying all of our properties and methods to the this keyword via this VM capture variable. And now this scope object is only really going to be used for some of the special features that it provides. And one of those features is the ability to set up watchers. So let's see what I mean here. Let's go down and we'll just set up a simple watcher. So we do $scope and then it's $watch. So that's the syntax. And what we have to provide here as the first argument in a string is going to be some expression or some property to watch for changes. So let's just do something like vm.value_to_change. So this is going to be a simple property that's going to have a value, and we're going to set up a way for this value to change. And then the second argument is going to be a callback. And this callback, the first parameter, is going to be something that holds that value. So let's just say value there. And what we'll do is we'll say if the value is going to be equal to 2, well, then we want a console.log value change to 2. All right, so now let's say that we're going to start with VM value to change is equal to 1. We'll just start it that way. And then we can use a timeout here to change that value after a certain amount of time. So we'll do timeout, and we'll say that we want a function for our callback. And then we'll say that we want VM value to change to equal 2, and we want that to happen after, let's say, 2 seconds. All right, so let's review this just quickly. So what we're doing here is we're saying we want to watch this value to change property, and this property is down here. It's initialized to 1. And when that value changes to 2, we want to say console.log value changed to 2. All right, so let's see this over in the browser. Let's go to Chrome and we will open up the developer tools, which is Option Command I on the Mac. And then let's make sure that we get to classifieds/new. And then over here in the console, we see value changed to 2. That came up after 2 seconds. So now let's apply a watcher so that we can appropriately respond whenever the sidebar closes. And what we'll need is some value for us to be able to see if the sidebar is open or closed. So what we'll need is some value to check for whether or not the side nav is open. And we can do that over here in our template. And we can use this md_is_open attribute to point to some property that's going to be a Boolean, and that's going to tell us whether the side nav is open or closed. So we'll say md_is_open, and let's give it a value of VM side nav open. So that will be true or false depending on whether the side nav is open. And then over here in our controller, let's do this. We've already got our watcher set up, so let's just change this to side nav open. That's what we're going to watch, and we'll change this to side nav, just to give it a bit more context. And then what we'll do is we'll say if the side nav is false, so if it's closed basically, what we'll do is we will close the sidebar. So we'll tie into our MD side nav here, and we want MD side nav left, and we'll say that we want to close it. And then once the sidebar is closed, we'll want to define where we want to navigate to. So in this callback, we can say we want to go to classifieds. And then what we can do here is we can get rid of all of this, and let's set up a function that's going to be responsible for actually closing the sidebar. So we'll do function, and this will be close sidebar. And then within this function, let's say that we want to set vm.sideNavOpen to false. And then of course up here at the top, let's point vm close sidebar to that close sidebar function. All right, so if we check over here in the template, we should still have close sidebar tied to this ng click. So back over in the browser, if we refresh, we've got our sidebar, and if we click cancel, we don't get anything happening, and it says state is not defined. So what we've forgotten to do is inject state over here. So we'll say state, we need to get a hold of that through dependency injection. And then let's try this again. We'll refresh. We've got our classified sidebar, and if we click cancel, we get redirected over here to the classifieds route. And then let's try this for clicking to the side as well. If we click over here to the side, we get back to this classifieds route again. So everything is wired up and working. That's how we make use of watchers in Angular, and we can use them here to give ourselves a way to navigate with our current setup. Now at the end of the last video, we talked about how we need some way to pass data between controllers now that we have things separated out. And so we'll use some features of Scope to pass data back and forth, which we'll set up in the next video.